about proactive risk assessments too is it's not an assessment of how well you're doing. Okay, it's not a report card necessarily. It's purely a tool that you can use to know what you need to target in your building as far as mitigation and maintenance. There are some risks that have nothing to do with how you're managing things, such as just proximity of high risk people to showers, or the risk of construction on the road that might cause water quality issues in your building. So a lot of these things are out of control, and it's just useful for you to monitor them. So I know I went a little over 20 minutes, but I hope all of this was valuable to you. Thinking about your water management program as an activity that can be assessed with a standard of care. At this time, I just want to thank you again for all of your time, and I open the floor for any questions.
Thanks, Brandon. That was great. And we do have quite a few questions in here, so we'll try to get to everybody. And as I had said before, you've got Brandon's contact information available to you right here. So you can always email him or give him a call after the presentation if you have any questions that are specific to you or don't get answered before we're done for the day. So to start off, first question I've got is, you talked about your experience as an emergency first responder for Legionella outbreaks. Can you elaborate on the cost and risk associated with an outbreak with and without a WMP in place?
Wow. Yeah. So I do quite a bit of an emergency response. I'd say a handful a year. We're getting a call, man, it is always on a Sunday night, about an outbreak or a single infection, or even a health department investigation where let's say there has been an elevated number of Legionellosis cases in a neighborhood, and the person calling me has a cooling tower, and IDPH is going to be at their facility first thing Monday morning, and they need to know what to do. Well, if you have a water management program and it is active and it is defensible, it has the language it needs to have, your water management program should contain a contingency description. What do we do in a situation where we have a possible Legionellosis incident? And you should be following and executing that. You're going to add on above and beyond that what you should do. But it should contain at least the bare bones framework. So the costs associated with that could potentially still be in the tens of thousands, because there's extra staff time you're going to need to invest in this. There's usually emergency response hours. I'm going to need to be there. I'm going to need to cancel appointments that I had that day to help you. There's often also a little bit of capital that you're going to need to put into responding if, depending on the issue, things like maybe hyperchlorinating your water system or installing point of use filters. Without a water management program, you can imagine the chaos that I've walked into sometimes, because there's nothing to hang your hat on. Often customers I find that have no background in water management and are experiencing an outbreak are just floating in space. They don't know where to start. They don't know what the smartest, most effective, most cost-effective response is. And frankly, my first order of business is just to try to provide some peace of mind, provide some leadership, structure, and order. What can often occur with the lack of a water management program, first in the moment, is a lot of realization that this water system has been deteriorating for years. And there can be hundreds of thousands of dollars, both in remediation, both in capital investment to protect patients or to protect residents, and also just frankly in the publicity. A lot of folks who run retirement facilities, senior care, will see a huge loss in business following the poor advertisement from an outbreak. It's very difficult to try and control the narrative when you don't have a water management program, because there is a period of time where you don't know how to respond, and you have news outlets outside your facility. Believe this or not, I've responded when there's been helicopters overhead. It can get kind of ridiculous. So With a water management program, I'd say, you know, the range is tens of thousands of dollars, maybe a little more. Without, hundreds of thousands, and that's not even considering the real risk to litigation that you have. And I mentioned earlier that the precedent for Legionellosis lawsuits can be in the millions.
Thanks for that answer. So
Sure.
next up, can I have my maintenance team do Legionella rapid tests and use those as validation of my program?
That's a great question. And there are a lot of different types of Legionella rapid tests out there. There's qPCR tests, there's SNAP tests that almost look like a pregnancy test. Those can be useful in certain situations, but remember that on my Legionella testing slide, I said that really the only defensible method of Legionella testing is third-party CDC Elite certified testing. And to get more specific about that, beyond the third-party lab, you're going to want to request a Legionella culture test by BCYE, which is buffered culture yeast extract. You don't really need to know what that means, but the reason that it's that specific is that the Centers for Disease Control only recognize that method as the gold standard for testing. So it's the only one that you can really hang your hat on because it has an agency behind it that recognizes it and said, yep, that's the one we recognize. That's the one we recommend as the way to determine actual Legionella risk. So I would say that if you're using that for routine testing, you're unfortunately probably wasting your money. I would seek out a third party CDC alert certified laboratory.
Thanks. Here's another one that's specific to Legionella testing. So what should I do if a result is positive on the second test, even after trying to correct for my Legionella problem?
I've seen that one. It's very frustrating. If I can understand this question properly, you identify Legionella, say in a fixture, you do something to try and remediate it, you test it again, and it's still positive. Well, what the heck do we do? Okay. Well, first of all, your water management program should address this as well. There should be something in there about how to address persistent Legionella positive results and also just certain thresholds of concentration. But what I'd also say about that is as part of a validation process, your water management team should be reasonably responding with an increasing scale of aggressiveness, I would say, to Legionella test results. So, you know, depending on whether your test results in a single fixture were positive and they won't go away, or whether your entire facility was positive, you tried something, it's still positive, that can mean different things. So on a facility scale, you may need to hire a professional engineer to do a dead leg survey. You may need to hyperchlorinate your building. You may need to look at ways to improve the overall flow of your hot water system through larger pumps, or maybe reducing your storage tank size. I mean, it can really depend. And that should all be decisions that are made by your water management team using the best information you have. In a single fixture, I've seen that too. You just have a stubborn fixture. There's still ways to be more and more aggressive. Maybe you flushed for 5 minutes and it was still positive. Well, now I think it's time to replace that fixture altogether. Pull it out, disconnect it at the wall, and put a new fixture in, and then test it. There's usually always a more aggressive step. The other thing I'll say is if you have persistent positives, your number one priority, even before taking extra steps to remediate, should be protecting susceptible people. So that may mean installing point of use filters on areas that are high risk, on areas that you know you have Legionella. That may mean reducing water flow to pencil width, water use restrictions. Whatever it is, you do not want on your record that you found Legionella in a fixture and you continued to allow tenants or residents or whomever to use that water unprotected.
Gotcha, thanks. So next question up, and we're running long, and I do understand that. So thank you for everyone who's hanging out, and we'll have 2 more questions, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up unless anyone has anything further. So next one up is a good one. Does a proactive risk assessment cost as much as a WMP?
Well, that's a good question. What are the costs associated with all these things? Every consultant, every vendor is going to do things a little differently. Some may not even do proactive risk assessments, so I would say look for that when you receive a proposal from your consultant. But I can tell you how we do things is when I come to your site for the first time to develop a water management program to survey your buildings, my proactive risk assessment will be included in that. I'm already there. I'm already giving doing the site survey. I'm going to give you a list, or I'm going to identify any risks that I see that should be immediately addressed. As far as after you have your water management program and you're executing it, a year has gone by, I'm coming back. There's going to be sometimes a cost associated with that, or maybe you're under a service contract where I have already been visiting as your ongoing consultant once a quarter. As part of my service contracts, I provide the proactive risk assessment. It's already baked in. And it's also not nearly as much time in front of a desk as a full development of a water management program is. So that initial program development is a much larger investment. However, you have a water management program forever. A proactive risk assessment should occur every year, and it's going to change every year. So what I would say is, short answer, yes, a proactive risk assessment isn't nearly as large of an effort as a full water management program. But also understand that if I develop a water management program for you, I'm going to already be doing a risk assessment as well. And that's not a separate cost to you.
Okay, and the last question that we've got, unless some others pop up and then we'll be done, is do you know if insurance companies require WMP?
Well, I sure wish they did. And I think it'd be in their best interests. That's a very interesting question. I would say that I have heard of some insurance companies being ahead of the curve, understanding that if one of their customers has a water management program, they're probably going to be a cheaper customer because their total cost of risk is lower. So they may require it. They may offer some type of improvement to the relationship. But by and large, we're still pretty early in that. And I would love to see more insurance companies offer a rebate to their customers, reduction in your premium. If you can demonstrate that you have a water management program and you're actively executing it, because it does make those customers cheaper for the insurance companies to cover since their risk is lowered.
All right, great. Well, thanks, Brandon. So everyone, that concludes our presentation for the day. If you've got any further questions, please do reach out to us. Earthwise is always here to help, and especially Brandon and the water hygiene team. So without anything else to add, thank you for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful holiday and a wonderful week.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. And, any amount of questions that you want to have offline, or if you want to know more about either anything I talked about today or anything related to the safety of your water systems, don't hesitate to give me a call. I'm happy to talk to you about anything you might want to talk about. So have a great holiday.